Okay, so turning ideas into real impact.
Yeah.
I get it. You're not just here to brainstorm. You
Yeah.
actually want to build something successful.
Mm-hmm.
And we took a deep dive into this podcast series,
Okay.
From Ideas to Impact.
Yeah.
It's by Haptic R&D Consulting.
Okay.
And let me tell you,
Yeah.
these folks, they know their stuff when it comes to innovation.
Absolutely. What's fascinating is they approach it as a journey.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
don't just focus on that initial aha moment. They break down the whole process.
Right.
From that first spark of an idea all the way to launching
Right.
and scaling a successful product or a service.
It's like having a roadmap
Yeah.
for innovation.
Yeah.
And we're going to give you the key insights so you can use them
Absolutely.
in your own projects.
Okay.
So let's jump right in with
Yeah.
the first episode, The Creative Spark,
Okay.
which is all about creating a culture of creativity within teams,
Yes.
which is something you've been working on, right?
Right. And the episode really highlights why that's so important,
Yeah.
It's not enough to just have one creative genius on the team.
Right.
Everyone needs to feel empowered to think outside the box
Yeah.
and contribute their ideas. And they actually bring in an innovation strategist from Haptic
Oh, wow.
who shares some interesting techniques for nurturing that kind of creative environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what were some of those techniques?
Well, they talk about things like creating psychological safety within teams,
Uh-huh.
where people feel comfortable sharing their ideas without fear of judgment. And they even give specific tips on how to run brainstorming sessions that actually generate
Okay.
impactful ideas, not just random ones.
Not just like a bunch of Post-it notes all over the wall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing that really stood out to me
Yeah.
was the emphasis on diversity of thought.
Mm.
The more diverse your team is in terms of backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives,
Right.
the more innovative your ideas will be.
Absolutely. And then in episode 2, Bridging the Gap,
Mm-hmm.
from idea to prototype, they get into the nitty-gritty
Yeah.
of turning those ideas into something tangible.
Yes. This is where that fail-fast mentality comes in,
Okay.
which I know can sound a bit counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but they make a really compelling case for why it's important.
So how do they justify that?
Well, because by building quick and dirty prototypes and testing them early,
Yeah.
you can get valuable feedback and iterate quickly.
Makes sense.
If something's not working, you find out right away
Right.
and can adjust course
But
instead of wasting months developing something that nobody wants.
Right. Like you don't want to get too far down the road before you realize this is not going to work.
They actually had a product development specialist on this episode
Oh, cool.
who talked about how rapid prototyping can save you so much time and money in the long run.
Right.
And they emphasized the importance of user feedback throughout the process.
Uh-huh.
It's not just about building something in a vacuum.
Yeah.
It's about constantly getting input from your target audience.
I like that. And then in episode 3, Market Validation Testing Ideas for Real-World Viability, they talk about data.
Yes. This is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
They talk about how to use data to validate your ideas and make sure there's actually a market for what you're creating.
So you're not just building something
Right.
that you think is cool.
Exactly.
You're actually like validating that there are people out there who will want this.
And they even delve into specific data analysis techniques.
Okay, so what are some of the things they talk about?
Well, they mention things like A/B testing,
Ah,
where you compare two different versions of something to see which performs better.
right.
And they talk about user segmentation,
Okay.
which is about dividing your target audience into smaller groups based on shared characteristics.
Yeah.
So you can tailor your messaging and your product development accordingly.
Smart. So you can really target
Yes.
those different groups.
Exactly. Having that data-driven approach can really make or break a new product launch.
Right. Because, I mean, especially today,
Yeah.
it's so easy to get data.
It is.
Like, why wouldn't you use it?
Exactly. It's about getting out of your own head
Yeah.
and letting the data guide your decisions.
And then in episode 4, building a business case,
Yeah.
aligning creativity with strategy, they tackle the business side of things.
Yes, because even the most brilliant idea needs a solid business plan to back it up.
Right.
This episode is all about forecasting market potential,
Yeah.
getting stakeholders on board,
Right.
and balancing financial goals with your vision.
So they brought in like a business strategist for that one.
They did. They brought in a business strategy consultant from Haptic
Okay.
who talked about how to create a compelling pitch deck
Yeah.
and how to present your idea in a way that resonates with investors and decision makers.
It's so important.
It's about turning your creative vision
Right.
into a viable business proposition.
Because I think a lot of times creatives struggle
They do.
with that side of things.
Yes. And they emphasize that the business case shouldn't stifle creativity.
Okay.
It should actually enhance it
Interesting.
by providing a framework and a set of constraints that can actually spark new ideas.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So it's almost like limitations can
Yes.
foster creativity.
Exactly.
It's like that saying necessity is the mother of invention.
Right. Sometimes having limitations can actually force you to be more creative and come up with even better solutions.
And then in episode 5, launching your idea strategies for market entry, they don't just leave you hanging after you've built the thing.
No, they give you a whole toolkit for launching your idea effectively.
Okay.
And maximizing your impact. They talk about everything from digital marketing to PR to influencer strategies.
So they really cover all the bases.
They do, and they emphasize the importance of storytelling. You need to create a compelling narrative around your product or service that resonates with your target audience.
Right, because people buy into stories. They do.
More than they buy into just like facts and figures.
Absolutely.
They also talk about the importance of building momentum leading up to your launch.
Yes. Creating buzz.
Yeah.
Getting people excited about what you're doing.
Did they have like a marketing expert on that one?
They had a marketing and go-to-market pro on this episode.
Cool.
Who shared some really insightful tips on how to stand out in a crowded marketplace.
Yeah, because that's the thing these days.
It is.
There's so much noise.
Yeah.
You have to really figure out how to cut through.
Exactly, and capture those early adopters.
And then in episode 6, Scaling for Success, Growing Beyond the Initial Idea, they get into what happens when your idea actually takes off.
Yes. This is where things can get really tricky.
Right.
Because scaling too quickly can lead to all sorts of problems.
Yeah. You can outgrow your systems.
Exactly.
And your processes.
They talk about the importance of putting systems in place to handle that growth without sacrificing quality.
Right, because you don't want to grow so fast that you end up...
Like cutting corners.
Exactly.
Or, sacrificing the things that made you successful in the first place.
And they talk about the need for adaptability as you scale.
Yeah.
You need to be able to adjust your strategies and your processes as you move into new markets and face new challenges.
Because what worked
Right.
when you were small
Yeah.
may not work when you're bigger.
They had a growth strategist on this episode who shared some great insights on how to build a scalable business model and how to avoid common pitfalls when you're growing rapidly.
That's really helpful.
Yeah.
And then in episode 7, Learning from Failure, Iterating for Market Success, they tackle something that a lot of people shy away from.
Failure.
Failure.
Which is inevitable.
It's going to happen.
It is. It's going to happen at some point.
Right.
Along your innovation journey,
Yeah.
the key is to learn from those failures and iterate.
So they actually reframe failure
They do.
as a positive thing.
As an opportunity to learn and grow. They talk about the importance of having a growth mindset and of being willing to experiment and take risks.
It sounds like they had some interesting guests on that episode.
They did. They had an entrepreneur on this episode who shared some really personal stories about their own failures.
Wow.
And what they learned from them.
I bet that was insightful.
It was really inspiring to hear how they were able to turn those setbacks into opportunities for growth.
And then finally in episode 8, Haptic R&D Consulting. Empowering your innovation journey, they bring it all together.
Yes, they showcase how Haptic partners with companies to bring these concepts to life with real-world success stories.
So it's like seeing it in action.
It is. It's like a peek behind the curtain to see how they're actually applying these principles in the field.
So they had some of their clients on that episode.
They had the CEO of Haptic on this episode. Who talked about their approach to innovation and how they've been able to help their clients achieve some pretty amazing results.
So they're not just talking the talk. They're walking the walk.
They have a proven track record of helping companies turn their ideas into tangible impact.
So as you can see, this podcast series is like a crash course in innovation.
Yeah.
They cover everything from that initial spark of creativity all the way to launching, scaling, and learning from failure.
And what's really great is that it's not just theory. It's packed with practical advice and actionable takeaways
that you can start using today.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've given you a pretty comprehensive overview
We have.
of the From Ideas to Impact podcast series.
Okay.
What are your initial thoughts? What's resonating with you so far?
Well, I think what's striking is how they weave together the creative process with the business side of things.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just about coming up with a cool idea. It's about understanding the market
Right.
doing your research,
Yeah.
and building a solid business case.
That's so important, and I think it's something that often gets overlooked. People get so caught up in the excitement
Yes.
of a new idea
Mm-hmm.
that they forget about the practicalities of actually,
Right.
bringing it to market.
And that's where haptics expertise really shines through.
Yeah.
They have a deep understanding of both the creative and the business aspects of innovation.
You know, one episode that really resonated with me was the one on market validation,
Oh, yeah.
episode 3.
Mm-hmm.
They really emphasized the importance of getting out of your own head
Yes.
and testing your assumptions with real data.
That's such a crucial point, you know?
Yeah.
It's so easy to fall in love with your own idea
Right.
and assume that everyone else will love it too.
Right.
But the reality is you need to gather evidence
Yeah.
to support your assumptions.
They talked about things like A/B testing and user segmentation,
Yes.
which could be so valuable
They are.
for understanding your target audience
Mm-hmm.
and refining your product or service.
And it's not just about validating your idea.
Right.
It's also about identifying potential roadblocks and challenges early on,
Okay.
so you can adjust course if necessary.
Right. It's like they say fast fail often,
Mm-hmm.
but I like how they put a positive spin on it.
Yeah.
It's not about celebrating failure.
No.
It's about embracing it as a learning opportunity
Exactly.
and using it to improve your chances of success.
And speaking of learning from failure,
yeah.
that episode where they brought in the entrepreneur to share their personal stories was incredibly insightful.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That episode resonated with me as well.
Yeah.
I think it's so easy to get caught up in the highlight reel
Right.
of success
Yeah.
and forget that everybody faces setbacks along the way.
It makes it feel more real, you know?
Well,
Hearing those personal stories
Yeah.
makes the whole concept of innovation feel much more relatable and human.
It's not just
Yes.
step 1, step 2, step 3.
It's not a linear process.
It's messy,
It is.
and there are ups and downs and
Exactly. To be able to navigate all of that.
and have the resilience to keep going,
Right.
even when things get tough.
You know, one thing that struck me about haptics approach
Yeah.
is that they don't just focus on the individual innovator.
Mm-hmm.
They also talk about creating a culture of innovation within organizations, which is so important.
It is.
Because it's not enough to just have one or two creative people.
Right.
You need to create an environment where everyone feels empowered to contribute their ideas.
And they talk about things like fostering psychological safety, encouraging collaboration, and celebrating risk-taking.
And leadership buy-in, right?
Yeah, sure.
Because if you don't have the support from the top down,
Right.
it's going to be very difficult to create that kind of culture.
It is, because without that support, it's going to be an uphill battle.
You know, and one thing I found particularly interesting
Yeah.
was their emphasis on diversity and inclusion.
Oh, me too.
They talk about how having a diverse team
With a wide range of perspectives and experiences leads to more creative
absolutely
and innovative solutions.
And it's not just about diversity of demographics.
Right.
It's also about diversity of thought and background.
Exactly. The more diverse your team is,
Yes.
the more likely you are to challenge assumptions, identify blind spots, and come up with truly groundbreaking ideas.
It's about creating an environment where everyone feels valued and respected.
Yeah.
And where everyone's voice is heard.
And that kind of environment is not only more innovative,
Right.
but it's also more engaging and fulfilling for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
You know, when I think back to all the episodes we've discussed, there's one key takeaway that really stands out for me.
I'm curious. What is it?
It's that innovation is not just a process.
Okay.
It's a mindset.
That's a good one.
You know, it's about being curious. It's about being willing to challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
And it's about embracing the unknown.
That's a brilliant insight. And it's something that Haptic really embodies in their work.
Yeah.
They're not afraid to push boundaries, to try new things.
Right.
And to constantly iterate and improve.
And that's something that we can all learn from.
Absolutely.
Regardless of our industry or our role.
Yes.
We can all adopt that mindset of innovation and use it to make a positive impact in our own spheres of influence.
You know, thinking about all this, I'm starting to see how these concepts from the podcast could actually be applied to your current project.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How so?
Well, you mentioned that you're facing some challenges with getting buy-in from stakeholders for your new product idea.
Yeah, that's right.
It's been a bit of an uphill battle.
Well, maybe you could use some of the strategies from episode 4 on building a business case. They talk about how to tailor your pitch to your audience,
Okay.
how to highlight the value proposition,
Right.
and how to address potential concerns.
That's actually a really helpful suggestion. I
Yeah.
hadn't thought about applying those concepts to my current situation.
Yeah.
But it makes a lot of sense.
And maybe you could even use some of the data analysis techniques they discussed in episode 3
Okay.
to gather evidence to support your claims.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I could use some market research data
Right.
to demonstrate the potential demand for my product.
Exactly. By grounding your pitch in data
Mm-hmm.
and presenting a clear business case,
Yeah.
you might be able to win over those stakeholders
Right.
who are still on the fence.
I'm so glad we had this conversation.
Me too.
It's really helped me to see these concepts from the podcast in a new light
Yeah.
and to think about how I can apply them to my own work.
I always find that talking through these ideas with someone else
Yeah.
helps to solidify my understanding
Mm-hmm.
and spark new insights.
And it's great to have someone to bounce ideas off of
Right.
and to get a different perspective.
One thing that we haven't really touched on yet
Yeah.
is the human side of innovation.
That's a great point.
It's not just about the ideas themselves.
Right.
It's about the people
Mm-hmm.
who bring those ideas to life.
Right.
Haptic touches on this throughout the series,
I do.
but I think it's worth exploring further.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on the role of people?
Well, it's all about creating an environment where people feel empowered to take risks,
Right.
to experiment and to learn from their mistakes.
And to not be afraid to fail.
Exactly. It's about fostering a culture of psychological safety
Okay.
where people feel comfortable sharing their ideas without fear of judgment or ridicule.
And it's about recognizing that everyone has something valuable to contribute,
Yes.
regardless of their title or their level of experience.
One of the things that Haptic emphasizes is the importance of building diverse and inclusive teams.
Right, because when you have people from different backgrounds
Mm-hmm.
and with different perspectives working together, you're much more likely to come up with innovative and creative solutions.
Absolutely. It's about challenging assumptions and avoiding groupthink,
Yeah.
which can be a real killer of innovation.
Absolutely. And it's not just about having a diverse team. It's about creating a culture where everyone feels like they belong.
Right.
And where their voices are heard.
That's so important. It's about creating a sense of shared purpose and ownership, which can really fuel the innovation process.
When I think about all the concepts we've discussed today,
Yeah.
I'm struck by how interconnected they all are.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about having a great idea
Right.
or even about having a solid business plan.
It's about the entire ecosystem of innovation,
All right.
from the culture to the processes to the people.
And recognizing that innovation is not a one-time event.
Exactly.
It's an ongoing journey
Yes.
of learning, experimentation, and adaptation.
It's about constantly challenging yourself to think differently, to push boundaries, and to embrace the unknown.
I think one of the biggest takeaways from Ideas to Impact podcast series is that anyone can be an innovator.
Absolutely. It's not just about having a certain personality type
Right.
or a specific skill set.
It's a mindset.
It is. It's about having the mindset, the curiosity, and the willingness to try new things.
And it's about creating an environment where innovation can thrive,
Yes.
where people feel supported and empowered to take risks.
So what does all of this mean for you?
Yeah.
As you continue on your own innovation journey, what are some key insights that you're going to take away from this deep dive?
Well, for one, I'm going to be more intentional about creating a culture of innovation in my own work.
Okay.
I'm going to make sure that I'm fostering psychological safety, encouraging collaboration, and celebrating experimentation.
That's great. And I'm going to focus on building more diverse and inclusive teams.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure that I'm actively seeking out different perspectives and that I'm creating an environment where everyone feels valued and respected.
And we both need to remember to embrace failure as a learning opportunity.
Right. It's not about avoiding failure. It's about learning from our mistakes and iterating our way to success.
I think the key is to have a growth mindset.
Yes.
To be open to feedback and to be willing to adjust course when necessary.
And to never stop learning.
Right.
There's always something new to discover and always room for improvement.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty inspired after this deep dive into the world of innovation.
Me too. I'm excited to put these insights into practice.
Yeah.
And to see what kind of impact I can make.
And I think that's a great place to leave it.
It is.
So go out there, embrace your creativity, and never be afraid to turn your ideas into something truly impactful.